Okay, continuing to talk about the Committee of Public Safety. Another thing that they're doing is imposing some economic reforms. All right, so they issue the Law of Maximum, which is given that name because it declares maximum prices for certain items, like bread. So this is going to be really important because realize that people like the sans-culottes and, of course, the peasants are going to be experiencing severe food shortages. And so the Committee of Public Safety, as an emergency government, is trying to deal with this. All right, so realize, as we said earlier, during the Enlightenment, Adam Smith's ideas of laissez-faire economics were becoming increasingly popular, but the law of maximum is the exact opposite of this. But they argue that they can't have a free, unregulated economy because they are at war. They are at war not only with other countries, but at this point there is an internal war. Okay, like I said earlier, they decree maximum prices for items like bread. They fix these prices with certain values of currency, and again, that currency at this point is called the assignat, right, which is backed in church land. Okay, they also ration bread, all right, because otherwise certain groups that could afford it might buy up all the bread and then make things even more difficult for people who are poor. So fixed prices and rationing. Also, they're going to have the government kind of dictate productivity, all right, because again, they are at war. So the government is going to nationalize a lot of small workshops. It's also going to requisition raw materials and grain from peasants. So basically what the government's doing here is it's dictating what to produce, who to send it to, and ensure that everybody has enough. All right. The government's going to make sure that a lot of arms and munitions are produced for these war efforts that are continuing to take place. We're going to talk about those in just a second here. And also, it's just important to realize if this is the opposite of laissez-faire, this law of maximum is like an early experimentation with socialism. So, wars. All right, so under the Committee of Public Safety, again, remember it's kind of dictatorial. It's Robespierre's saying it's representing the general will, but it's just 12 people. One of these 12 people is a minister of war named Lazare Carnot, and uh, he does some significant things for the army. He basically reorganizes the French army, and he institutes what's called the levée en masse, which is another word for a draft. Okay, so it expands the draft so much because it argues that war is part of the national mission. All right, and of course, war is an important way to propel the French Revolution forward and extend it abroad. You can see that this is just really the agenda of the more radical members of the revolution. So again, you're going to see a lot of opposition grow here. All right, but because of this draft, the army grows to about 1 million men, which is going to make the French army outnumber their enemies by about 4 to 1 in most conflicts. So this is going to result in a lot of French victories. By the summer of 1794, France controls the Rhineland and the Austrian Netherlands, and the First Coalition, which we mentioned earlier, is basically falling apart. Okay, because of the planned economy that we mentioned before, it's going to make the army more efficient and it's going to be able to mobilize more effectively. They can make more weapons, they can make more uniforms, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's a good thing for military victories. If you're not in favor of the foreign wars, then of course it's a bad thing. All right, you're going to see that because of these victories, some of the emergency controls instituted by the Committee of Public Safety are going to be relaxed. However, the reign of terror is going to expand because as these wars continue to be successful, anyone who's against the revolution is going to get more worried. So let's really define the reign of terror here. It's probably the most well-known part of the French Revolution. Most people kind of think of the guillotine when they think about the reign of terror. So here's a little guillotine down there for you. So what is it ultimately? It's basically this period of the French Revolution where the radicals who are in control, right? The Committee of Public Safety was led by Robespierre. These are radicals. Okay, they are doing as much as they possibly can to try to oppose any opposition to the revolutionary government. Okay, so it doesn't matter what social class you are, if you are against the revolution, you could die. All right, so ultimately, what is the way that they are going to be able to justify these killings? Um, the uh, the Committee of Public Safety issues what's called the Law of Suspects. And what that does is it creates this revolutionary tribunal where alleged enemies of the revolution will be tried for cases of treason. All right, it is under the Law of Suspects that Marie Antoinette is executed about 6 months after her husband in the summer of 1793. But we're also going to see about 40,000 people in France be executed or die in prison after the Law of Suspects is passed. All right, and we reach a point where people who are in favor of the revolution are starting to see executions like a sport, right? I mean, they're very much excited about the fact that anyone who's opposing the revolution is going to meet their deaths. They see it as a way for them to kind of instill that their ideas of liberty, fraternity, and equality are going to continue. It's kind of ironic that they see this as an example of liberty. All right, so again, just to give you a few more figures, the Reign of Terror is not targeting any specific social class. You see some of the percentages here. All right, you may say, well, looks like there are a lot more peasants, but remember that there are more peasants in the population, right? Also, there were many more people killed during the Reign of Terror who lived farther away from France, or Paris, that is, and who were already in open revolt. So we were talking about the counter-revolutionary royalist revolt in the Vendée earlier. Just as a reminder, here we go. Vendée, very far away from Paris. All right. These are areas that are much more subject, sorry about that, to the Reign of Terror. All right. You're also going to see that foreign countries are going to look at what's going on in France in this very violent period, and even countries that previously supported the revolution are going to start to oppose it, right? So the United States is a prime example here. Remember how the Federalists and Anti-Federalists were the first two parties in the United States? All right, the Anti-Federalists are actually going to be the people who continue to support France, like Thomas Jefferson, but the Federalists are going to look at the violent nature of the revolution and say that it is going way beyond what the American Revolution ever wanted. And they are scared that the revolution could spread to the United States, so they become very opposed to it. Okay, you're also going to see that during the Reign of Terror, any Jacobin who was opposed to Robespierre is going to get executed. So remember the Girondins, they were already kind of taken out of government. So you're going to see that there is a reaction against this part of the Reign of Terror, right? So we already saw, Charlotte Corday go against Jean-Paul Marat and kill him. You're going to see that these people who are opposing Robespierre are going to get killed. All right, Charlotte Corday is going to be killed for assassinating Marat. Georges-Jacques Danton also was seen as being too moderate towards the revolution, so he is executed. And this is an interesting case here with Jacques Hébert. He's one of the examples of one of the only people who's executed for being too radical or having an excess of zeal during the revolution. Okay, he leads a group called the Angry Men or the Hébertistes, right? And they're a party of extreme terror. And at one point, in the region of Nantes, remember the Edict of Nantes? They killed 2,000 counter-revolutionaries. They literally load them on barges and drown them. All right, so Robespierre actually has them executed, even though they are in favor of the revolution. They're just going way too far. All right, religiously. Robespierre is also going to go continuously against any kind of established religion or church in France. So this is going to instill a lot or incite a lot of Catholic opposition to the revolution. All right, so under the Republic of Virtue, which is a new political culture under Robespierre to try to inculcate revolutionary virtue, all right, he issues this this new church, this new religion that he calls the Cult of the Supreme Being. All right, it's introduced in the summer of 1794. All right, and like a lot of Enlightenment thinkers, it is a deistic religion. And basically what it's saying is that the Republic is declared to recognize the existence of God and the immortality of the soul. What does this mean? It basically means that the government has more of a role in kind of shaping who God is and ultimately what um, ultimately the okay, back. Sorry, I just had a little brain moment. Under the cult of the supreme being, I mean, basically, you're going to see that it is the republic that is kind of declaring what is religiously significant rather than the church. All right, and one of the things that really gets the Catholics against Robespierre and the cult of the supreme being is that they take the Notre Dame Cathedral and they convert it into what's called the Temple of Reason. It's also this time that the revolutionary government actually changes the French calendar. They go against the Greco-Roman calendar, and they name all of the months after seasons. So like there's Thermidor, which is in the middle of the summer. It means hot summer months. All right, and also they turn the weeks into 10-day weeks, and they deliberately get rid of Sunday. All right, so you're going to see that people who are very devoutly Catholic are going to also be against the French Revolution at this point. Okay, so enough opposition against Robespierre has emerged at this point. If you are a Girondin, okay, if you are Catholic, God forbid you are a royalist, you have to be very quiet at this point, right? But I mean, anyone who is at risk to be killed by the terror, which a lot of people think is anyone, right? A lot of people think that the reign of terror could extend to anybody except Robespierre, right? So basically, this Thermidorian reaction, we were just talking about the revolutionary calendar. Thermidor is a summer month. Okay, this is when Robespierre goes down. All right, so after the opposition to Robespierre reaches a certain point, the government, the National Convention, denounces Robespierre when he's in the room. All right, they arrest him. Robespierre actually tries to commit suicide, but he fails. He actually shoots himself in the jaw. So he meets a very painful death. Can't even speak when he is brought up to the guillotine. And also some of his close associates are killed along with him. All right. So basically, because people like Danton were killed, everyone feared that they might be next. So that kind of necessitated the downfall of Robespierre. Right, and also even the sans-culottes don't support Robespierre anymore after they kill Jacques Hébert. All right, so this ends the Reign of Terror effectively, and it brings on a new form of government called the Directory. Okay, so you're going to see actually that now there are more conservatives that are in control of the government because the Reign of Terror took it way too far to the left. All right, so now more bourgeoisie, middle class people like lawyers and other professionals are going to reassert their authority. And the Directory is actually an executive form of government, all right? There are 5 people who have executive power within the Directory. It makes up a bicameral legislature, so a 2-house legislature. And these 5 different people called directors basically work together with the legislative form of government to institute laws. All right, now this marks the middle class's control of the government. All right, so there are some weaknesses within the Directory. All right, you're going to see that really only the middle class is supporting them. So you're going to have kind of a narrow band of French society actually supporting them. And you're also going to see that all the economic controls from the Committee of Public Safety are going to be removed. All right, so the sans-culottes are going to lose influence under the Directory. You're not going to have a law of maximum anymore. You're not going to have any price control, so prices are going to rise dramatically. The middle class is going to try to get peace in order to gain more wealth and establish a society where money and property determine prestige and power. All right. So you're going to see that there are some weaknesses to the Directory, and in just a minute we'll talk about some of the challenges to the Directory.